welcome again. Just want to go through the agenda real quick, kind of go through our lineup of presenters. We've got a mix from quality in-house personnel, some Deere people, some Harvest Profit people, but got a good agenda. We are going to move pretty rapidly through it. We'll break for an extended lunch if we need it, about 11:45. We're going to have lunch brought in here. If you got any questions that you want to talk about, we'll be here for that, and we'll be here after we close this afternoon for as long as we need to. One thing I will mention, if you see our marketing people in the room, we are Facebook Live, so just everybody knows that. And we'll go back and look at this recording anytime if it works right, if I'm correct. So we will have some Q&A time, so we'll go offline for that. So if you got questions you want to talk about and you don't want them recorded, that's fine too. So going through the lineup, we're going to start off with Cam. He's a quality equipment field guy out in the east. We have Barrett, which a lot of you know. I don't know where he's at in the back. Matthew Tomberlin, which hails from the Albemarle area. He's a field guy. Heath Freeman is coming to us from the Lumberton-Laurinburg area. Colton Toller from the northeast. Myra sits in the call center. If you ever called our call center, you've probably spoken to Myra. Sean Cox from John Deere, Jay Rosentrader from John Deere, Ben Longlet from Harvest Profit. So we got a pretty robust lineup. We're going to go through every tab in Op Center. We do apologize if you don't have Op Center because this is kind of an intermediate class. If you're a beginner, glad you're here. Maybe you can pick up a nugget and we can follow up with you later. So without anything further, if there's not any questions, we'll turn it over to Cam and get it going.
How is everybody? So we're going to start right off with Operations Center. What do you see when you first open Operations Center? Of course, a map. A lot of times, most time it's on the equipment. But right here, you can find all your fields that are logged into Operations Center. If you got a certain field you want to look up, you type it in, you can pull it right up. Like I said, client, you can search it by the farm, the work, what's been done there. And then going right along to the equipment. Most of you know, if you've got a 4G modem on your machine, it's going to show up right here. And you can also put them in there if it's not got one, it still can show on yours, but it's not going to do anything, of course. You can do the same with these. Make, type, model, your tags. You can name these machines whatever you like. If you got an operator that you want to put with it, you can do that. Moving right in, if you click on that arrow, it pulls up what I call your statistics of the machine, your hours, in this case the combine. You got your separator hours, your engine hours, your fuel, your def. And right here, this is your MTG, how long it's called in. If it's been a year ago, that means you're kind of having problems with your modem. You might want to get that checked. RDA, directions, you can share, export your data. RDA, I like that tool. How many have used it? Good. If I'm up north, hours away from a guy down south, and I can't exactly get to him right then, I like to use it. I might can solve the problem without having to go in there or going down there and touching it, directions, that's on, of course, but I use that a lot too. I mean, you got to figure out where the guy is. You ask him the machine, and you can get right to it. It shows your summary of your machine, your utilization, your fuel performance, alerts, anything that your machine is showing, your maintenance, what you've got coming up on it, and then your setup. This shows your machine name, your modem that's paired to it, and also your displays. Also, it shows your software version down below that, which looks like that one is sitting in Washington and needs updating now. Moving over to your map itself, of course, you can see your machine sitting up there. That's the Washington store right there. And if that machine was moving in any of these fields right now, it would have a green arrow. If it's idling, it'd have an orange with a little pause sign. Moving over to, if this field right here, moving down to the bottom where it's the legend there, the green dot, the blue dot, and the orange are missing the one, which is the brown one. If you got that field outlined, it's going to show what you've last done in that field. So if you're planning your week or your day, you see what you've sprayed, you see what hasn't been sprayed, or you see what's been tilled and what has not. So that'll help too. Moving over into the new. This is just notes that's been released, how-to videos if you need to see how you do something. Any contact support you might get from John Deere or anybody that in this database, help, and then feedback that you might want to send back to John Deere yourself. I've done since I've been here, I've done a lot of clinics and trainings and stuff, and they do take a lot of feedback. If they can't find an answer right then, they'll get you the answer within that day, or they'll get back with you as soon as they can. Very helpful. The next thing is going right here to this little gear. And this is your organization preferences, and I wanted to touch on the feature enablement. Anybody use AutoPath? Tried it? If it's not working at all or not working properly, it won't work if it's not even, there's going to be a toggle on your organization. It has to be cut on. If it's not working, a lot of times check that. Another one that they've added is auto reasons. So if this is toggled on and you have an operator in that tractor and he's sitting down there at the end of the field for an hour and you see that thing idling, what's he doing? Is he on TikTok? Is he on Facebook talking to his girlfriend? You never know. So you have the power to make him put something in that box. Or why you were doing that. Why were you sitting down there so long? And if it's something that he's not supposed to be doing, y'all can have that discussion later. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on is anybody ever used the little tools on the right hand side? It's coming up. Right up here on the right hand side. So basically that is just an in and out zoom. You can zoom it all the way out. You can see the whole world. Your satellite or your regular map. Then your map settings, and then your ruler. I've used that just, see how many miles a field is from a field and whatnot, stuff like that. So from right there in Arizona down there in Venezuela, 3,200 miles, 3,300 miles. And tags. Oh, I forgot to mention the star. Anybody ever use a star? So what that is that's just a favorite star. Just like if you made a favorite web page or whatever on your computer, it basically takes that machine, puts it up to the top of that list. So you can keep an eye on it at all times. Any questions? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Barrett and Myra. Thank y'all.
So me and Barrett are the Setup tab in Operations Center. I'm going to go over Data Sync to begin with. And the most important tools that we use in Operations Center. This syncs your machines to Operations Center so you can manage your data a little better. To here, you'll see your serial numbers, the displays that are on those machines, and the software that is on those machines. It's really easy to use. You'll just go into here and you can see, like this one, for instance, is disabled. You can go in there and manually enable it. The things that are synced to your machine data sync is over to the right hand side. What you want to be sent over to that machine. You can choose your boundaries, guidance tracks, flags, chemicals, products, team. It's just on your preference what you want sent over to those machines. And when you're at that machine, a lot of people ask, how do I know if it's going over to Operations Center? On your run page at the top, you'll see that little cloud icon. You can click on that, it drops down, and you can see the data sync if it's enabled and if your Operations Center is enabled to that machine.
If you haven't used data sync, I would highly advise trying that. I guess if you've got 2630s, you're out of luck on that side of the deal because it won't work from 2630s.
Right. Yeah, so you need a Gen 4 processor with a V2 processor is what I meant to say, or a G5. The software does like it needs to. And of course a JD Link connection, an active connection.
Also make sure that if you decide to go on and try it, I would highly recommend making sure that the Op Center is clean, that it doesn't have 3 forms with the all kinds of chaos for you. You're going to end up hating data sync. But if you're just moving lines from a ripper to a planter or something like this is the greatest thing ever, because it just, as soon as you hit B, it automatically goes to whatever machine that you have it tied to automatically, and it's there. Makes life 10 times easier.
Is anybody familiar with data sync in here?
I know some use it. Yeah.
So the next thing I'm going to go over is equipment. This is where you can go in and manage your equipment. You can add your equipment. If you've purchased a piece of equipment that's used, I know a few of you have called me and want me to transfer it over to your Operations Center account. This is where I go and do it. I just put in a transfer request from the previous owner to your Operations Center. This is where it helps to have a good email address linked to your Op Center account, so you can get a notification that something's being transferred over. Through, and you can see what is synced to this piece of equipment. So click on this one over here. It gives you the general information, what organization it's in, your responsible dealer. This is where you can go and transfer or remove that piece of equipment. If it has an active JD Link connectivity, and when the last time your modem called in. This is where we usually go to see the last time it's called in and its status. Also, Cam talked about RDA, remote display access. This is where we can go in there and we can RDA with you. Over to the right-hand side to you is where you can see your pairings. Let's pair to this piece of equipment. The version, the software version on it. There's another place you can go to check that. Other than machines, you can go in here and you can see your implements and your devices. It's a really good tool to use, like Data Syncs, just gives general information on what you have in your organization.
If you buy something from out west, it's much easier if you contact the person you bought it from, because if we're not responsible dealer, we can't just transfer it over. Deere won't allow it. So if you have that ability, or give me the number, and I'll call on your behalf and get it moved or whatever, that makes it way easier.
Yeah, we've had that happen where somebody's purchased a piece of equipment and it's been sitting in somebody else's organization. It just says transfer request sent, and it's not really a lot we can do. So like Barrett said, if we're not the responsible dealer for that piece of equipment.
When you send that transfer request, it goes to that dealer. If somebody's not paying attention at that dealer, they don't see it. So then it's much easier. We'll help you.
The next thing I'm going to go over is Setup File Creator. This is where you can create setup files to send over to your displays. You go in here and it's got 6 steps for you to choose from when you're going through here. You can choose your display type, provide a file name, create a new one, or create one off of an
Sorry, I would also keep in mind that whereas Data Sync is sending all of the lines, the fields, the boundaries, those types of things, at the beginning of every year, if you don't have it, it wouldn't hurt to have a setup file pre-made with implements, measurements, things like that, because Data Sync won't send that stuff, and you could have every implement you own in every piece of equipment, no matter what you would hook up, it's automatically there.
So then you'll go through land, and this is where you'll filter your land items and variety locators, client, farm, field, boundaries, guidance lines, what you want in that. You'll go through there and choose the piece of equipment that you want that setup file sent to. Like Barrett said, and JD Link connection, it can automatically get sent over. But at the end of this, it's going to save it in files. So if you have a 2630, you can download it on a USB drive and go and put it in the display. But it's really organized, and it just helps to go through everything in files and go back and look at what you have sent prior. Is anybody familiar with Setup File Creator in here? You use it a lot, yeah. Yeah, it's really popular, and it's a really good tool to use. The last thing I'm going to go over is team. I know I talked about having a good email address linked to your organization. This is another good reason to have a good email address link, because when you go to add your team members, you get to choose the access that you want to give each team member in your organization, and you're going to get an email for team permissions to accept that for your organization. And I've had a lot of people call us, and we're not listed as a dealer to help them out in op centers, and they don't have an updated email address, so it's hard for me to get the permissions from them when they can accept it. So it just helps to have a good email address link. But when I say permissions, so like right here, we're listed as a dealer for these people, and they've granted us certain levels in each aspect. So equipment, you can go through here and you can see the access granted for us to help them out in their organization. So we can view, edit, and manage. Organization management, we can view and manage. And locations, we can view, analyze, manage, view, and manage. Financial, we don't really mess with, but this is where you can go through and give us access to help you out. and of course, organize your staff, operators, partners, dealers, and connections. So, anybody have any questions? I'm going to turn it over to Barrett.
We know you guys don't want to, everybody to have your data or whatever, but it does help us tremendously if you allow us to help you when it comes time to a lot of these deals. You call and say, hey, I can't fix this. I'm not showing data. When I look at your data, I can't see it either. So it helps tremendously for us to know that we can get in there as well. The first part I'm going to go over is connections. I don't know if anybody's used connections. If you haven't, there is quite a few really good ones on there. And all it is doing is attaching Nutrien, Helena, Harvest Profit, multiple entities are attaching to as a partnership with you so that you can have your data all in one place. You can let them have access to maybe they can't see your equipment. You decide that. You don't want them to see your equipment, but they can see, I guess, what you did this past year so they can help you with soil sampling or anything like that. Like if I type Harvest into search bar, Harvest Profit comes up, right? There are tons of connections on here, so it wouldn't hurt to look at those and at least see if there's something that would actually help you if you don't know that it's there. And remember, you're the one that controls it. You grant them whatever you want them to see and what you don't want them to see. Also, if you have a different color equipment, we hope you wouldn't, but if you do, there's ways on here to connect that equipment for CNH or whoever else to move your data into Op Center so it's all in one place if you needed to do that. We obviously rather you have green, but if you don't, it is what it is, isn't it? And Jay will talk about something later with Deere going over the same deal that's even better that's coming down the pipeline. The next thing we'll go over is georeferences and curfews. I doubt much people use this, but we've had some because somebody tried to steal a tractor before and he started using it now. But if you go into georeference curfews and you do create new, you can name it. You can also draw a box into where you want this machine. You can put it around the machine. You can put it around your farm. It will let you know if this piece of equipment leaves or enters that geo. You can decide what you want it to be. Maybe you don't want your guy going to the store and sitting for 30 minutes or something. It's going to allow you to do it. You can also have an operating time, select certain days, certain time periods. And then obviously you have to pick the machine, and it must have JD Link. And I'm not a salesman, obviously. I'm not trying to sell you any JD Link or modems. But if you were still moving lines with, I guess, sticks or something like that, just keep in mind that there are so much easier ways to do this. By just adding JD Link, your life will be so much better. And then obviously if you have a Gen 4 with the capability, we can turn data sync on and make your life a billion times better. That's pretty much all there is to the georeferences and curfews. You guys just decide if you want to keep somebody under control, keep your piece of equipment under control in a way you know where it's at all times. Especially when they're costing the way they cost, I guess. The next one is land. This one's a pretty big one. So obviously the easy parts of it, you have clients and farms and fields. All your boundaries are there. It's going to show your guidance lines and all the flags. But it's also a table. I don't know if anybody knows, you can play around with the map part. You can look at a table. It's going to show you what it was made from, when it was created on. It makes it easier to analyze that data when we look through the table part. Also, when you go to add, this is where everything changes. You just click add and you can add anything you want. Fields, flags, boundaries, tracks, autopath boundaries. We'll go over that. That stuff's pretty simple. The flag you can add as a point. You can do it as a line. You can do it as an area, a square area. If it needs to encompass a cemetery or whatever. You just select what field you want to add it to, and then you make it happen. Boundaries, this is a different thing. So you can obviously draw a boundary. You can obviously pull boundaries in from somebody else that's drawn them, maybe a nutrient or something of that nature. But I really hope that you drive them. If you have drivable or driven boundaries, specifically on RTK and SFRTK, your life will change drastically. I know everybody says, man, I don't have time to ride around and enjoy these fields or whatever. If you can make time and create an SFRTK boundary, you will be tickled pink. So Deere is telling us 10 years on SFRTK, but it is going to be much longer than that because we don't really have earthquakes that happen here very much. But if you have that boundary laid out perfectly, it opens up the door for boundary track. I don't know if somebody's used boundary track, you probably love it. If you haven't used it, please try it. If you've got good boundaries and they're not going to put you in the woods, please try the boundary track and you'll see a big difference there. And then also the new thing that's coming is autopath boundaries. Jay is going to speak on that really in a deep manner in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you that because it is fantastic. One of our guys is actually, the Britt family is actually here today, and they were actually one of our test subjects for this past year. So I can pick autopath boundaries. I can pick that field and put a track spacing, and it automatically it aligns to the boundary. It's going to automatically go to align the boundary every time you pull it up. But it produces the lines and the inroads for you without you doing anything and does it in the most efficient way possible. Now, I know that the most efficient way possible is not the way we want to do it most of the time. Maybe we've got water, tobacco rows, or sweet potato rows. We're definitely not going to run it the same way. But we can use existing tracks. If we have a track, we change this to a track that's there. You can have the same track you've had on RTK for 10 years. I don't care. That's fine. But we can run it off that exact same line. This creates the amount of pass. Like there's 9 field passes, and well, now we have 1 headland pass, but you can obviously change that and make that whatever you want. We can also do heading angle. 0 is obviously going to go north, but Jay will get into that. I don't want to go too crazy with that, but you can change heading angle and change exactly how you want it to be. And you can edit the boundary headlands and fix 2 or 3 headlands, however you want to do it. This is a game changer. Not many people have used this because they didn't know it was there, and it's a new thing that come out latter spring, but this is the reason alone to have driven boundaries. It is by far 10 times easier and better. You can pull in the field and just take a path because it's automatically going to end up at the end of the road perfectly. It works great on anything. And we did, with the Brits, we did ripping, planting, and spraying, and it worked great. So please take a look at that. If you haven't, that's something you definitely need to look at. And like I said, Jay will go through this thoroughly in a little bit. He's going to show you a bunch of different ways that this works. And next, I'm going to do licenses real quick. Licenses doesn't really pertain to many people, I guess. The only license that we have in here now for Op Center is the Pro Dispatch license that is for your Helenas, your Nutrients, your, I guess, guys to that matter. Maybe something for my custom applicators to look at. I don't know. It's just something you could look at. But that's the only license they have now. It costs like $15.50 a year, and it manages your entire fleet and where you're at, where you've been, the whole 9 yards. Something to just look at. See and spray license will also be in there eventually when that happens. But that is the only license we have now. You can integrate work orders. You can send it. It'll tie into different back office systems. Maybe enhance your productivity. I don't know. Something for you to gander and see if that would work for you if you're on the custom application side of things. Next, I'm going to do products real quick and be done with that one. I would imagine a lot of you guys are using the products, typing in your varieties, your chemicals, fertilizers, tank mixes, that nature. I will say that if you spray that same tank mix or you spray the same chemicals, same varieties all the time, I would just come in here on the computer when it's raining and it's cold or whatever and automatically have all these in here, because it will make life 10 times easier if you already have it pre-populated. This is another reason to have boundaries. With work planner, we're not showing work planner yet. Steven's going to do a little work planner in a little bit. When you see a work planner and you tie tank mixes, you tie these chemicals, varieties, whatever, when you pull into the field, because you've made that boundary, it automatically populates on your screen. So whoever is spraying, be it Jose or whoever it is, it will populate perfectly the way you want. And then it comes back to you so that whenever he's finished spraying, you know he sprayed these exact products in your field because you put them in there. Obviously, there's varieties, chemicals, fertilizer, tank mixes, and it's easy to add. You just come here and add a product, and it's great to search for. You can search for any product. We'll search for the easiest one. Everybody knows Roundup. It's going to search and pull up all different types of Roundups, right? Most likely, it's going to have the chemical or variety that you need. It's going to be there. Steven is going to go into how to build tank mixes and stuff like that, so I won't get too crazy with that, but you can obviously make a tank mix, especially if you're going to be spraying the same tank mixes all the time. And I've heard a lot of times when Steven goes over work planner, everybody's like, I don't have time to mess with work planner. Well, we can have blanket work plans for tillage, or if you're going to spray the same thing over sweet potatoes, like everybody loves to come in sweet potatoes and do burn down with Gramoxone right before they set or something. You can do a blanket work plan and send it to the sprayers, and it'll at least keep up with that as it's doing it, right? And they can be modified all the time. Just remember the carrier. Carrier is very important. If the carrier is not there, it will not work. This overall application rate is what you are putting. It is not the amount of chemicals that you're doing. It is 10, 20, however many gallons per acre you're spraying. And water doesn't have to be the only carrier. Obviously, there's fertilizer is a carrier that you guys use all the time. That is essentially all of the setup side. Is there any questions that I can answer and hopefully get fixed for you guys before we bring Steven up? Go for it. I guess the way you could do it.
Because I've got 2630 and I don't have a whole lot of room for memory. So right now, just for the time, I'm shooting
Oh, let's do land.
farm, field, and I've got an option to send to the display.
Right.
Fill my memory up because I haven't found a way to filter just my peanut lines that one tractor made.
I know you can go to like guidance here and we can go to the table. It's not going to.
I've seen where I can archive certain lines at certain.
Yeah, you can get them out of the way.
But I have not found a way to do it in setup file creator.
Yeah, it tends to only allow you to just use all the lines or all lines for this field because it's tied to this field. That tends to be your issue.
Lines are like this 2600 display made or this 2630 made.
Yep.
So is there not a way?
I don't ever remember there being a way that you can specifically say that there is a 4600 tied to it or whatever it would be.
Because I've seen it before when I archive lines, but
Yeah. And you can pick which ones you want. Yep. And bring them back, make them available, yeah. It's always tied to that client farm and field in it.
But I've never seen it in setup file creator. That would make life a lot easier.
Well, maybe that's something I'll speak with Deere about. Maybe they'll listen to that too.
So we can do that in work plan. And so setup builder is kind of sort of going away.
Yeah.
We can migrate into work planner, and we'll see in a little bit how we can do that. We can select it.
Yeah.
I can tell you, hey, this was made by this 2630, but you might go and find things.
I don't know if you can use work planner yet though, right? 2630. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it may be a little tricky situation trying to fix that one. Always problems, right?
It would be very nice because we really plant two separate passes. So I'm always trying to find a guidance line.
Yeah, just come back tied to that.
My peanut planter. So I know for all the lines for cotton, corn.
Yeah, because you don't need them.
My peanut planter, but I don't need them. I just need just certain lines that have certain display dates.
Yeah, the work plan would be awesome when you tied that exact line for that work plan when you come in would be great. Something to think about moving. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just saying to make your life 10 times easier. Has anybody else got any more? All right, Stephen, come show them how to do the work plan. It's really, like I said, you can pay attention to the work plan one and you'll see what Stephen says. You can make a blanket work plan to fix that.
All right, so feels kind of dead in here, so we're going to be moving around, raising hands, shouting and dancing. But wanted to address an issue before I get into plan that it was mentioned earlier with SFRTK. How many people are using SFRTK? How many are using radio RTK? So let's go ahead and debunk some myths. I'm sure everyone has seen the videos of some other dealers saying we're killing networks such and such a date. Right? Has anybody seen those? I don't know what this microphone's doing. But we do not have any deadline on when we're going to kill our radio RTK towers. We do know, however, they are going away. We are going to be limited on how long we can get equipment to keep them going. But as long as we have a customer need and we can get components, we are going to keep our network online. So you heard it today. We're not saying December 31st we're killing our towers. There is no plan of that for us in this area. So just wanted some TikTok and some Instagrams. I've got some uneasy questions that were brought up yesterday and the day before in these events. So just wanted to clear that up while I was up here. So we'll jump into plan. Hopefully it all works. How many people use the maintenance under plan? Anybody? Show of hands, wave, shout. One. If not, this is probably the most underutilized resource in Operations Center. So why is that? We say, well, how many people know exactly when their machines need to be serviced? Not seeing any hands, right? So, you might have a machine that is 45 miles away, but it'll be back next week. Well, let's go ahead and service that. So here we have kind of what you see is a summary page of our demo account. Here, what's past due. Obviously, if you had a machine that went over the hours, it would be in the past due box. Here's machines that are showing maintenance needed very quick. Well, it's not very quick, but maintenance coming. So we have an X9 that needs it in 246 hours and a 410 that needs it in 175 hours. We scroll down, we'll have machines that aren't enrolled in any kind of plan, and then due soon. So what we're going to do, we're going to walk through this, how to set up a plan and show you some neat features of it. So maybe we can find a use for it. So we're going to pick on this 410 down here. See, we don't have any kind of plan. It's got 163 hours on the machine. It came in new this year. So we're going to add us a plan. We're going to choose factory. Question came up yesterday. What if I change my hours, a different hour interval? That's your business. You do how you want. You just create custom plan and put your requirements in there. But we're going to create a factory plan just for simplicity. We don't have but one option for this 410R. So we got to name it. So I'm going to name it today's date. And we're going to say we're going to put 300 hours on that a year. We're going to start that plan today. We're going to say the machine is 6 months old. And we're going to plan on keeping that piece around for 5 years. Maybe. Nobody's ever had this happen in Op Center, right? So here we are. It gives you all of your intervals that are needed. Kind of breaks down the account or the plan. So if we want to see what's got to be done here, It's telling you what it needs, engine oils. We're going to cancel out of that. Everything looks like you want it. If you need to tweak or delete anything, you can. And we're going to hit enroll plan. All right, so it's telling us in 86 hours we need a 250-hour service. Now, how many people know exactly what that machine needs at 250 hours? Anybody? I doubt anybody does. So if we break this down over here, it tells us what we need to do right here. Everything is in a checkbox. So you go through and check everything that's in this list. When it's done, you simply check it. It says it's completed, and whoever completed it will show up. And also we'll give you parts that are needed. So it's telling you here that you need GL5 80W140, 3 liters of that. So you can have that in your truck before you head out. If you pick a more advanced plan or a more advanced service, we'll discard that. Let's look at our 500-hour service. There's all the part numbers and everything you need to complete that service. So that number will be the most current John Deere part number. If you order all your parts or filters in December, January when we have the big sales, it may be backwards, may not have the most current filter on the shelf. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, but it's not going to be in this list. You may have to call and get a backwards sub number for that to make sense. So, any question on maintenance? Yes, sir.
How is there an interface with this on the local app?
It's not. Yeah.
So if it was, when you were in the shop, you could do it in real time.
Yep.
Like we don't have a computer in our shop.
Right. Yep. Yep. So that's point been taken. Yep. Yes, sir.
You're working on the sprayer here, and it is a 14, but like on the 408, they asked for a 50-hour service on the planetary goods.
Mm-hmm.
Does that show up on that thing?
It probably would, but we're past the 50 hours, so it's not going to show in the maintenance. But yeah, it should show anything that's in the operator's manual.
Like even if it's breaking?
Yep. 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 Anything else? All right. So we're going to go back to our plan tab. We're going to skip the agronomy prescription creator. That's a third party that comes in. You put in your fields. We're not going to take the time to do that. There's so many different options in there. So if anybody wants to see that, like I say, we'll be here for a long lunch if we need to be or after time. But we do want to beat up our work planner pretty good. So if everything works correctly, we'll go through a work planner here on the desktop, and then we'll do one on the mobile phone so everybody can kind of see the difference. So the data that you see in here is actually demo farms that we have this year. We've had the opportunity to do several different demo spots throughout our AOR. So you may see some names you know, but this is our application. So we're going to say we need to create an application, which would be spray, fertilize, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to plan application. And we're going to have to pick our field, and I'm going to pick on this field up in the northeast. And we'll pick next. There's our field with our boundary line. Our guidance line, excuse me. So we can come up here to our products, tank mixes. We're going to go to tank mix, because I don't think anybody's probably spraying just one product anymore. And we don't have what we see in here. So Barrett was saying we can create blanket ones. You see 716 and 717. These are ones I've created in the last 2 days during the events. So we're going to create a new one. All right, so we're going to tell it again. I'm going to name it 718. And we're going to target cotton. Our overall application rate, we're going to have 12 gallons. And we got a tank size of 1,200 gallons. If that's different, you can change that as well. So first thing we got to do is make sure our carrier is correct. You don't know how many times we get phone calls, folks can't get this to work, and they're missing the carrier. I don't think anybody's spraying anything that does not have a carrier. So we're going to say we're going to put liquid fertilizer as a carrier today, just to be different. So right now we need to put 1,200 gallons of liquid fertilizer in that tank. Pretty simple. Well, we got to add some product to it, right? So let's come up with what we want to add. We had Primo Max in here from the last few days, so we're going to add Primo Max, and we're going to change this to our rate of fluid ounces, and we're going to say 21. Okay, so we want to add some more products. We're going to put some picks in there with it. I know this is probably a stupid tank mix, but just to get everybody. So we're going to put 21 ounces of that. So we see what it's doing as we go down. It's telling us how many products that we're adding, and if we hit save, it'll put us in our list of 718. So now we can just pick 718. It shows us our rate. Everything is good to go. If we want to add our guidance lines to it, which most of the time we do, so we'll add our guidance lines. This is where you would select your guidance lines if you had them in here. So whatever guidance lines for that field would be listed below that. We only have one for this particular field, so I'm going to hit planting. And we're going to tell it what machine we want to do that job, which we're going to pick on the 410 down here at the bottom. We don't have to put operator and implement in. And if we are keeping track of it with a work order style software, if you want to track it that way, you can. So we'll just put 718 in there as well. Hit save, and it should put it in our list. And we don't send it, and I'm not going to send it to the machine because they're actually working. But if we hit the radio button on the left and hit send to equipment, it sends it out to it. So what do we have to send it to the machine? What's the number one enabler for everything we're talking about? JD-Link, some sort of modem. Question did get brought up yesterday. How compatible are we with other telematic devices? We're not. So you can't put any other telematics on there and this work at this time. We can use their boundaries for everything we're talking about here. When Jay comes up later and talks about some things to come, we have to use John Deere boundaries, driven John Deere boundaries. So. Yes. Yes. Nope. Yep. I would say if Jay wants to chime on this, I would say you'll see setup builder go away, and have everything being work planner. Right. Yeah. So you always got 25 to start. So, yep. Good question. All right, so if this works right now, I'm going to jump over and walk through a setup work plan, on the phone. And maybe I'll quit getting text messages long enough. So what the app should show is our home page. Yep. So I know it's hard to see, but that's the new home page. And we've got the same tabs at the bottom. We're going to go to plan. I'm going to set up a tillage task. You see it set up for tillage at the top. We're going to hit the plus button to add one. Again, I'm going to pick on the same field. Hit next. We're going to say we're going to go 6 inches. We're going to add our guidance lines. We're going to select our equipment, which I'm going to do that with the 6R. I don't worry about anything else, and we'll hit save work. So there it is. We can put the radio button in there, and we can send it to the machine if we wanted to. Now, if you also notice what popped up at the bottom. So if you have trying to document something that doesn't have JD-Link, so you've got a 6020 tractor you're doing some bedding with. You can create a tillage task in here, and when it's done, you can mark it complete, just like that, and you can complete it with documentation or without. If you complete it with documentation, it's going to show up in your Operations Center as documented task. So if you have some older equipment, you want to do that, it doesn't have to have a screen in it. It Doesn't have to have GPS on it. It's just you're saying, hey, this tractor's planned to do this job. This job is complete. I'm out of here. So what we got to do, everything looks good. Start time and just hit save, and now it's gone from the list. If we hit complete, there's a list of completed jobs that we have. And that is really the end of plan. To Mr. Laster's point, that is a handicap. So, but plan is limited on the mobile app right now.
But you can send to the machine from here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any questions on plan on desktop or the mobile? Yes, sir.
If you make a plan and whether or something, for whatever reason, you decide you don't want to do that anymore, can you go in and delete it out?
Yeah. Yep. So I don't have any plan. Yeah. No. Let's see if I got an application planned. Yep. So if we click either one of those, at the bottom on the mobile it says complete or delete. And if you delete it, it will sync it to the desktop as well. Yep. Same thing on the desktop. If you highlight it, you can delete it there too. The only thing we were talking about it yesterday, the only thing the guy in the cab can't change it or manipulate that work plan. He can change what he's doing, but it's not going to affect the work plan backwards, if that makes sense. Right. Yep. 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 So we just hit delete, and it says, hey, are you sure you want to do that? Yep. So it's gone. Anything else? Yep. Yep.
I don't know if this really where you're working at right now, but something that I've seen in, maybe it's the way, you know who my employer is?
Yeah.
Okay. The way he does his setup, when you go in to plan a field, and again, you know who I'm working with, so, you go in and go under the work in the machine, and it'll have two different crops there. And you can't, under that, you can't delete those. Basically, my workaround has been, I'll go into the second crop and just set it to 0 and put the double lines in that. How do you prevent that? Again, I don't know if this is within the purview of what you're covering right now, but
Right.
like I've gone in to go back and look at planting data, information, and it'll say that you planted soybeans and corn over all your acres.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to go in and get clean data, so to speak, you've got all this extra information there.
Yep.
And I don't know how to handle it, you know. And I mean, I'm obviously no expert on this.
Yep. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think we got two options there. We got to keep it clean when we start, or we got to delete it at the back end. And neither one are fun, as we know. Yeah. Yep. Yep. I understand. Yep. Anything else? All right. If not, Matthew's going to come up and dig into some analyzed features.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. We're going to look at analyze here on the computer and also hopefully here on the phone in a few moments. I like to refer to analyze as kind of the heart and soul of the agronomic side of Ops Center because it tells us how well we did what we did, right? We kind of talked about planning up till now, and this is what we're going to look at, what we actually did with the machines. All right, I'm going to start off with Work Analyzer, and that's actually where we're at right now with the screen that we're seeing here. And basically, Work Analyzer is our paper report, a PDF report, kind of in a table format of a particular operation. So, actually, I'm sorry, we're not in Analyzer, we're in Work Planner. Let me skip over here real quick. They look very similar. So when we go to Work Analyzer, we'll have in our upper left the task that we want to to view. So right now we're filtered for seeding. You can see the other categories in here that we can choose from. We also have our crop year and then the actual crop. So if you had soybeans, wheat, whatever, they would also be populated in this list, and this is just a way to filter what we're looking at. I like to use this sometimes just to take a quick glance at how many acres were done, for that particular crop for that year. And if we scroll on over, there are other stats that we can look at as far as the equipment that was used, the date that this crop was seeded, and we can actually click on that heading name and sort in ascending or descending order. So sometimes that's handy to see when when a field was planted or your last planting date and so forth. If we wanted to share this data or produce a report, PDF, or a printout report, it's very simple to do. We simply filter for what we want to see, again up here, and we would come over to share and export, download report. When you tap download report, you're given options for what you actually want to download. So there's a detailed, which breaks down each field or work instance with all that data there in the columns. There's also the summary, which is a little bit less data. It's just kind of the highlights. You can also download it as an Excel sheet. And at the bottom here, we have a PDF of the actual aerial map. So it has that data with the actual planting or application map. This one is pretty hard on a printer, so it takes a lot of paper and ink. So just be careful with it. You're printing out just what you want if you're going to do that with the colored maps. Okay, one feature that has recently been added here on the desktop version is the ability to edit work that has been done. So right here, if we go to edit, that's going to take us in. We can choose to change our crop and season, the area seeded, and also the varieties for a particular farm, or you can do a blanket approach and select all and change all. One thing I come across somewhat frequently, customers will be planting corn and then they'll switch to soybeans with the planter, but they don't document it in the display. So we can go in and select that particular farm or group of farms and change our crop type and the season. Like if you're running 2630, a lot of times guys will not remember to change your crop season on your setup page in the 2630. So we can actually go in and change the season and the crop type for those farms to retroactively correct that data. So that's Analyze. Next, we're going to look at Field Analyzer, which is at the top of our drop-down. There are multiple ways to get into Field Analyzer. We can click Field Analyzer here. We can also get into a field. If we exit our edit view here, you can get to that particular farm by clicking the map icon. We can also get to it from the map page, the main map page, by selecting that farm and tapping the Analyze icon that is next to that farm or field name. So this gives us our aerial map, our view of the work that was completed. And in this instance, we had planting. There's also, looks like we had some starter at the plant date. At any rate, this drop-down menu at the top left of the map shows us the historical work that has been completed on this farm. So if you want to see when you planted what on a particular farm, you can go there. I am going to switch over to another demo account here quickly to look at to pull up some fields that have more history on it so we can make better use of that. So I'm going to go to Fields, and I want to look at the East 180. Okay, so I'm actually accessing this from the Maps category, and I'm going to come down and click Field Analyzer. We are in Analyze mode because this icon here is green in background. We can click that and unselect Field Analyzer mode. But just wanted to kind of bring up See and Spray. I know you guys have probably heard a lot about it in marketing and whatnot. And this is an actual spray map, as applied map with the See and Spray sprayer. Was a John Deere demo. And Field Analyzer gives us the ability to look and see how effective that machine or that technology is. So on this particular field, looks like it's somewhere out Midwest probably, we have the area not applied with 62, 63%. So that's showing you the value of that technology and that machine, the actual savings there. We're going to switch to another farm in here. Obviously this is an irrigated pivot field, and this one actually has some more history with it. So you notice here we have summary, data analysis, and timeline. Summary just shows what was done for that particular operation, the stats for that, machine performance, seeding rate, spray rate, whatever. If we go to data analysis, it's going to give us another drop-down menu, and we can choose another operation or layer to look at. So what I want to do here, we're going to look at harvest, corn harvest. And I'm going to pick another harvest here. Okay. Now, over here, moving toward the right, we have compare, and the icon there is fairly self-explanatory. Compare is putting that field, two maps of that field side by side. So if you want to look at planting beside harvest or application beside harvest, you can do that. Overlay overlays a map on top of a map. So if you have a new tank mix or product that you use, you want to put that as the base layer and then put the harvest on top and see how it performed. You can draw a polygon around there and draw out the yield for that particular test area with overlay. What we're going to look at real quick here is difference. Fairly powerful tool here. So that gives us three maps here. So the one here on our left is the corn average. This is average harvest over the past 4 years for this particular field. Okay, so that's going to give us an average. 193 is the average right down here. The field in the middle, we can pick whatever we want to look at. That can be our last harvest. So we're comparing last year versus a running 4-year average to see how well we've done. There are a lot of factors that can play into yield, obviously, but we generally want to see that trend, bumping upward. And then this last map shows us, it's basically like a normal distribution of the areas in the field that are improved versus the average, or lower than average, or no change. Okay. All right, so we can also edit from Field Analyzer and delete work records. In this particular account, actually we do have the ability here. So we can come over here if we wanted to delete an operation, and everybody has it in their op center. You've got your sprayer on the farmyard, and you're just running some product through it just to make sure the nozzle spray well. Well, that's going to put what I call a blip on the farmyard that you don't really want documented. There's no point to it. You can go in and delete that record. It's also handy to do that in Work Analyzer. Oftentimes when I'm cleaning data for customers, I will filter that or sort that list with the fewest acres to the most. And the operations that have 0.0 acres or 0.01, that's the blips. And we can go in and delete those. If you go in, you can do it from here as well. You can just hit delete. You can also edit the season, the area worked. You can edit varieties and products based on if it was spraying or planting, excuse me, from here as well. Okay, and we're going to plug into the mobile app here quickly, just to show you a quick rundown of Analyze in the Operations Center mobile. Okay. Because many of these features are also available in here. Okay, while that's getting pulled up, I did want to mention that Analyze can process John Deere data from the 2600 display up through current, as well as data from about 30 competitive displays. So if you're running mixed fleet, different displays, there's a good chance that you can pull that data off a thumb drive, put it in Data Manager, and it'll populate in Operations Center. All right. Unfortunately, this worked 2 days ago, but it's not working today. So, at any rate, the mobile app has very similar functionality to it as far as editing. Kind of a good thing to play with if you're waiting on the grain truck or a water tender. Maybe go in and view your data or do some cleanup in there. All right, so moving on from the Analyze, as far as the agronomic side, we're going to look at Machine Analyzer quickly here. Okay. And in Machine Analyzer, we can view various stats for our equipment. We'll jump back over to another org here real quick. That we actually have some machines entered into. Okay, so in this organization we have sprayers, tractors, combines, planters over here. We want to look at fuel usage. We can filter for that and see, you know, how much fuel is used over a given date range, and obviously we can customize this date range. Another useful tool in here specifically is performance, which is a breakdown of working versus transport versus idle time as an average. And then if we expand, we can also look at individual machines under here. Okay, so this could be helpful, you know, if you've got excessive idle time. Maybe have a guy shut the tractors off, you know. If you're spending a lot of transport time with the sprayers, okay, well maybe we need to put it on a trailer, you know, if we're traveling long distances. So it just gives some visibility into how we're actually using these machines. Okay. Now, if we come down to machine reports, this in essence takes the categories that we can look at and analyze, and we can customize those in a report that we send to ourselves or, you know, someone else in the organization on a regular basis. So if we want to see, you know, fuel usage, we can give the report a name, and actually that's just going to give us our engine hours, but we can select here how often, one time, weekly, monthly, so forth. If we want a report, we can choose at what time of day that report is sent to us, and also the day of the week that we receive that report. We can choose if we want an Excel file, you know, if you're managing it, you know, in an Excel file, PDF, what have you. You can choose individual machines or all of them, and then you would just click Save, and then it will send that report to you automatically on the basis that you have requested it. So, if you want to see the reports that are scheduled to come out, you flop your tabs here to schedule. You can also look at historical reports that have been sent. Okay. So that kind of wraps up what I'm doing here as far as Analyze. I'll turn it over to Ben here in a moment to go into the harvest profit. I did want to mention, everybody's heard junk in, junk out, right, as far as computers, and that definitely applies here. Thankfully, we can go back and retroactively edit and make data clean, but it's important to have that also for the sustainability part. We're not getting into that today, but if you have interest in working with carbon credits, capitalizing on those. Most of the programs that pay for that want to see good digital data. So you got that coming from machines, and like Stephen showed you, you can manually document that in Work Planner. So it makes it a lot easier to enroll in those programs when you've got a good set of working data. All right, any questions on Analyze from the crowd? Yes, sir. Yes, you can. Yeah, there are pre-made filter buttons at the top. So if you want to look at just varieties, for corn or whatever, you can filter right here and select only the varieties you want to see, or you can select all and come over here, and the varieties, I mean, the sky's the limit really, as much as you want to. Yep. Yeah, that would be. I would use filter for that, where I just click, and you can select the individual fields or all fields, and really the varieties, all that, and then click done. That's going to filter the list that you see here, okay, and then go to share and export, and go to download report, and it's going to produce that sheet or that PDF of just that list to give to that scout. As far as I know, it's still going to have all of these columns. I don't know of a way to really hone that down, and maybe someone can correct me on that. You can also share, I didn't mention this, you can share the actual work data. So in whatever work is done in this list, we can select it and share it as work data, and it creates a packet, basically like it came off a John Deere display, that you can share with another organization or agronomist or whatever to do for them to analyze in another operations center. Or if you did, let's say you do some custom harvesting for a neighbor, you can go in and select those files, share that work data, they can plug it into their operations center and download it, so they have that data as well, if you're not partnered with them on the back end. Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll turn it over to Ben from Harvest Profit.
Morning, everyone. As Matthew said, my name is Ben Longlet. I'm with Harvest Profit. It sounds like a few of you know who we are or use the software, so it's good to hear. I'm going to go over a little bit about what we do, what we are, kind of how to use the tool on your farm. If you have questions along the way, let me know. We'll kind of do a little bit of a lighter overview, just because not everyone has seen or used Harvest Profit before. So a little bit about what we are. We were a software company that started back in 2015 doing farm financial management software. A small group of people working on it, and then in 2020 John Deere acquired the business, and so we continue to work as a separate business entity we're all employed by Deere. So a little bit unique situation. We have a small team working on a very focused product. There's about 7 or 8 of us that work on Harvest Profit. So what we're doing is we're working to do tying financial information to all that Ops Center data that we're looking at earlier today. So we're technically under that Analyze tab, you'll see a link for Harvest Profit. What you're going to see here is kind of a list of some of the most important things we're doing, kind of what we list as our critical questions we're going to answer for your farm. So what that looks like is answering, what is my cost of production? What's my field by field profitability? Does my profit and loss change when I increase or decrease my rotation or change crop rotations? Being able to evaluate things like equipment purchases or crop shares versus land rent. Just really any of these numbers related things in the farm that are related to the finance side of it, trying to be able to analyze that in a software tool. So the reason for our connection with Deere is that Deere has a lot of great data for the agronomy side. It's a great place to record everything that's happened, whether it's machine data, agronomy data, documentation stuff. And what Harvest Profit does then is we store the financial side of it. So really the key pieces of information that we're keeping or what you're entering into our software are things like what did you pay for a bag of seed? What kind of grain marketing positions do you have? What does it cost to operate on a piece of land, whether you're renting it, owning it? Those are the details that are missing from Op Center, and we bring them together to help you make those financial data decisions. So a little bit more about what we are and what we're not. So we're not an accounting tool. We're a financial management, business management tool, which means it's easy to use by anyone. So anyone on the farm that's using Op Center, it should be just as easy to use Harvest Profit. Simple budgeting features, and just kind of a funny thing here this morning, as you guys were all listening this morning, I was sitting back there actually building out my 2025 budget for my farm. So in the less than an hour, I'd say 30 minutes there, I have a full working budget for 25, plans on crop rotations, kind of switching some things up on the farm. And that's really the power of the tool, is being able to use the data we have, easily carry it forward and start looking at the future. And with doing that, we're utilizing that existing Op Center data, and then there is no need for extra financial connections or tools like that. It's solely relies on that Op Center data and the data that you input manually. So what we aim to do is bring a little more confidence to your decision making, more facts versus emotions. So this is what a farmer Lucas from Nebraska said, is just simply put, it has made farming and the decision making around it enjoyable and digestible. So I really like how he says it's informed, real-time decision making through the noises of farming. So the things like we want to do is have financial oversight, understanding where your positions are on the farm, where's our profit and loss on a daily basis. Want to help you with financial transitions. So things like generational transitions, or if you have a multi-entity farm, being able to understand that breakdown of those entities. If there's multiple people involved in ownerships, understanding the financial profitability of each of those owners in the farm. And then the last thing is forecasting. Like I already said, we work on bringing those numbers and taking them into the future, and that way you can start projecting what things are going to look like down the road in 2025, 2026, and so on. So I like to throw this one in here. This is our grain marketing roller coaster. I don't know, you guys can probably read it pretty well. I know this is how I feel looking at the markets every day lately, is that we're on this crazy ride, and the goal of Harvest Profit is to help you understand when you're making profitable sales, be confident in making those sales, and not being the guy that hangs on till the bottom, which it happens to everyone, but we're trying to kind of just control those decision making on the farm. So I'm going to jump a little bit into our feature list again, and then I'm going to jump right into the software. So again, field by field profitability, farm by farm profitability, total crop profitability, grain contracts management, understanding what's sold, what's left to sell, what your average cash price is, that machine data integration coming in from Op Center, also through other data partners through Op Center. Scenario analysis, so that's the ability to say, here's what I was planning to do, here's what I might do, here's what I actually did, and being able to compare all those together to see which way was the best scenario. Application templates, that's how I easily built out that nice crop budget for 25 already, is I'm not actually going in and putting in, here's how many pounds of urea I'm using on every single field. I'm just using budget numbers, quickly applied across all my fields. Chicago Board of Trade connection, so that futures connection, that means your corn, soybeans, cotton, wheat, things like that. We're pulling in live market data I shouldn't say live, we're on the 15-minute delay, but that way when you open your account, you're looking at the what if scenario. If I sold the rest of my crop today, here's what my profitability would be. We also do grain inventory management, and then we display all this through the mobile apps. Just like Op Center, we have mobile apps and web apps. Then also we do profit mapping. So I'm going to get into this demo here. So I'm going to show you kind of a completed year in harvest profit, what it looks like, explain a little bit about how the software works and how we're getting there. But I'm going to start at the end. So we're going to start at the profit and loss report, because this is where we want to get with all of our customers. Is this nice report here that tells us all the information about the health of our financial positions in the farm. So right at the top, we have this total profit. I do this both times now. We'll actually start showing my screen here. All right, so right at the top, we have highlighted here, that's our profit and loss projection for the farm. So this is looking at 2023, a completed year, and we're showing that there's a income of $147,000 across this net income across this farm. How we get there is we break this down on a crop level. So understanding the profitability of each crop, how many acres there are, what's the break even of those crops, average cash price, return on investment, and that profit and loss per acre, all totals into total profit and loss by crop, and then total farm profit and loss. When I scroll down, I'm going to see the breakdowns of all these categories that you can customize to your operation. So if you have, however you want to break down all your overhead expenses, they'll break down by crop. We can view where we're using more on repairs on certain crops versus others. However you have it allocated will show up here. And we're also going to be able to view this data by field. So understanding which fields are most profitable, which fields are least profitable. Right now we're showing it in total. So if I sorted this by profit and loss, largest to smallest, it's going to be by acre, or by, smallest fields going to show up at the top, but I can also switch this to a per acre view. So we can see which fields on a per acre profit and loss were the most profitable, least profitable on our farm. So a little bit of how we get there. It starts with the fields and land cost page. That's going to be where you come in. All this data pulls in from Op Center. So it pulls in your fields, pulls in your farms, your acres, owners, and you just have to put in what you pay for that field, what you rent it for. Do you have something else? If it's owned, do you have some sort of opportunity cost associated to it, whatever that would be, or a crop share. Next steps is setting up a crop plan. So crop plans, so if you're signing up today, your crop plan's already in there. The crop's in the ground, we pull that in from Op Center. If I'm signing up this winter, I'm going to be building out a crop plan for 2025. So once that crop plan's in there, we also are going to look at planted acres and then this entity. So this is where it comes in play of I can farm one field, my brother can farm the next field, we can farm the next one in a partnership. You can set this up however you want, and the software is going to sort that data so that cost centers are all split out correctly. Once you get past that, it comes into inputs and applications. So inputs are going to be just like your products list in Op Center. We're pulling in the same products. We're connected to the same list. They can be different. You can manage these separately. But the big difference is we're going to ask you a little more information about the cost of those products and then the units that they're being purchased in. So applied inputs are going to be seed, chemical, fertilizer. What did I pay per price of bag of seed, per pound, per bushel, whatever it may be. Fertilizer per ton, per gallon, and chemical, whatever unit price you're buying it in. Also below this on our inputs page, this is where we get into the overhead inputs in the farm, so repairs, payments, really anything you want to put in here that creates that overhead side of the farm you can track through here. A lot of people will match this up with their accounting software, so if you have categories already in your accounting software, or you schedule this, or your Schedule F, you can kind of match these up so you can use that final report at the end of the year to update these numbers. Once that's rolling through, we have an applications page. It's pretty straightforward. It's just managing your applications on a field-by-field level. So if I open up a field here, we'll see the individual applications that happened on this field. So I can open up the seeding, and it'll tell me exactly what product was used, what rate it was applied at, and what was the cost per acre of that application. Same thing with see if I can find something a little more complicated. It's chemical mix. You're seeing every single product, the cost of those individual products. And at the end of the day, if I close this out, I'm going to see that on this soybean field, my inputs were $113.34 an acre on average. So we can have, you know, different varieties, multiple varieties. You might do a split application. All that can be recorded in here. The revenue side of the software is pretty straightforward. We do revenue just based off of yields and price. So we can put in a planned yield for the beginning of the year, and then once you're finished with harvest, you come in here and you import your operations center yield. Once that yield is flowing through, at the same time throughout the years you're using the software, you're going to be entering in your contracts. So every time you're selling grain, coming in here and putting it in here. This is a great way to record those, understand what your positions are, see what your average cash price is. This one's a little sad to look at, as I can see I'm sorted by futures price right now. Corn prices from 645 to 368 for 2023. But we're going to see how that average cash price affects my profitability. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the revenue numbers used to calculate this profit and loss. I'll show you a little bit quickly too what it looks like when you actually import those applications into your account, because there is a little one-step process. So if I go into my 2024 actual, we'll pull up a field here. So if I want to pull in my seeding application for this field, I just have to click the checkbox and click import. The reason we do this is it's a one-step process to verify that information, make sure varieties are correct, rates look correct. All this information, even though this came in from Op Center, it's still editable here. So if a wrong variety was here and you wanted to change it quick, you could. Change the acres, whatever needed to be done. But as soon as that came in, that $88.93 per acre was applied to this field. So that's pretty simple how to bring in those applications that occur on the crop. Since we're pulling these in, as you see when I pull these in, maybe a little hard to see, but there's a little boundary showing up there, so we're actually seeing the area it was applied to. So what that means is that we're pulling in the actual spatial data. This allows us to do some profit mapping reports. So I'm going to get back to the right page here and show you an example. And this is see if I have a good one in here. I'm missing my corn ones in here to show today. So we're going to show you a soybean field. And this is going to be actual profit and loss sub-field. So I forgot to mention it, but this field was profitable. I think it was around $7,000 of profitability. We're seeing $220 an acre of net profitability. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend this down a little bit, kind of take out some of the streakiness from just the yield map, things like that. You can also contour this, make it look a little bit nicer of a representation of a map to look at. You see some mistakes in yield mapping stuff that are showing up. That's what these red streaks are. But the big things we're seeing is there's this kind of light green patch on the right-hand side here. And then we're also seeing these bleeding out red areas. So I'll explain a little bit about what's causing that. It's kind of a fun story. This field is tiled. I don't know if you guys have much drain tile in this area or understand it, but we have really wet and heavy soils. This field is drain tiled except for this last 150 feet. There is some utility cables that prevented it. So a real wet year, and we can see right to the line where the tile stops, we have a yield loss. That yield loss does lead to less profitability in that area, and we can use this profit map to highlight that individual area and sort it out and view what the difference is. The other thing I want to show is even though we're making a net profitability of $220 an acre, there's $209 of variability in this field, so a lot of variability. And we also have 16.15 acres of opportunity. So that's our opportunity acres, which means that 11% of this field actually lost money in it. In those acres, we lost $5,400. So that's $5,400 below zero. Just by getting those areas back to break even would bring us $5,400 more revenue on this field. If we look at what it would take to do that, we're showing 16 bushels an acre in those bad areas we'd have to increase yield by, or we'd have to remove expenses by $336 an acre. Those are both pretty high goals for poor producing areas, but what we want to do is work with customers to start looking at what we can do in these areas to either remove inputs, remove costs, or maybe it is an area we can drive yield in or change drainage or something like that to promote better profitability on a field level. Try to bring that variability down. Anyone have any questions about what I've showed so far in the software? So I'm going to jump back into my slides here quick, and we'll finish up here. We'll talk a little bit about what's coming to our software. So with our integration today, we pull in, like we discussed, fields, farms, organizations, as-applied data, yields. We create profit maps. And the last thing I have on here is equipment. So coming soon to our software is the ability to start looking at equipment costs. So I'm going to go skip backwards in my slides, have this backwards, but I'm showing my equipment list in Ops Center. You'll see we have everything connected on my farm that we possibly can, no matter what color it is, and that's because in Harvest Profit we're going to start allowing us to tag equipment to applications and start creating we have a calculator built out that will look at total cost of a piece of equipment, what is your payment schedule, interest, depreciation, repairs, and looking at what is the actual yearly cost for a piece of equipment. Then we're going to start looking at how many acres that piece of equipment went over, how many hours were accumulated, and start breaking that down to a field level eventually. But to start with, it's just going to be a total cost per machine.
All right, appreciate y'all sticking around for this afternoon. Like Stephen said, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about the mobile app and some new things that we've added for customers to be able to kind of handle, track, and maintain their equipment. So kind of to lay it out, we're going to spend some time talking about the equipment mobile app. Who's got equipment mobile on their phone? Who uses equipment mobile pretty regularly? Who's seen any new features added to equipment mobile recently? So I'm going to show you one hopefully today that you'll be able to use. Who does not have equipment mobile? Hope you're going to want to it by the end of the session anyway. I think we've got really the next little bullet points, the big piece of it, but being able to update controllers through equipment mobile. That's going to be a big add. And it's going to be something that just continues to evolve and keeps growing. Harvest equipment set up, and then just kind of spend a few minutes wrapping up and maybe catching any questions we've got before we let it go here. So the equipment mobile app, if you think back about what we've had over the last 2 years anyway, we used to have Apply Plus, you would have Harvest. You'd have to have basically an app for every function. As a matter of fact, you had to download the John Deere App Center to get the apps included in the App Center. So you'd have an App Center app, then you would have all the sub-apps for your equipment. What we've done with Equipment Mobile is pulled all that into one place. So now you can download Equipment Mobile, and you will have your harvester, your tractor, your sprayer, your planter, whatever you might have, you'll have all that in one spot versus having to go through different apps to see it. It's also pretty nice, it's connected to Operations Center. So once you download and sign in into a mobile app, your equipment will be pulled into Equipment Mobile. And you'll be able to do everything you need to with it right there. So it's a pretty neat feature, neat add that they've done. And that's what we're getting at here. It makes it a little more convenient. You've got one app you need to download, one app you need to maintain at that point. It's simplified management from the standpoint of you go to organizations to do that now. The resources, you've got operator's manual, you've got your parts catalog, you mentioned software, you've got multiple tools within Equipment Mobile, whether it's harvest setup or grain loss calculators or sprayer. functions. Also got some troubleshooting capabilities in there as well. With my troubleshooting capabilities, we're not going to take you step by step through the troubleshooting process, but we're going to tell you what that error code is. It's on that piece of equipment, and we're going to tell you what generated it. So in other words, if it's high temp or it's a 192.18, it's going to tell you it's a high temp or whatever sensor that would be, and you need to check the harnessing or you need to check the actual temperature. So it'll tell you if it's voltage or if it's temperature related. Improved visibility through JD Link. Again, you've got more functionality and attachment to JD Link than what we've had previously with this equipment model. And then again, we've got tools, grain loss calculators, planer runoff, multitude of things we can do inside our equipment model. So if you don't have the app, this is what it looks like. I'd encourage you to download it. Again, once you download it, you would log in just like you would into Operations Center, and then it's going to pull those same permissions over from Operations Center into Equipment Mobile. So if you were a 3, if your permission level's 3 in Operations Center, it's going to give you access to those same features in Equipment Mobile. One of the things like we'll talk about here in just a minute is going to be software downloads. So if you're a 1 in Operations Center, you're not going to be able to download software via Equipment Mobile. But if you're a 3 in Operations Center, you are going to be able to utilize that feature to download the software. So again, once downloaded and logged in, it's going to connect machines that are in Operations Center, and then it's going to give you that functionality. So what we're going to do is just kind of walk through a couple of the tools that's specifically in the sprayer app itself here. So this 4045 sprayer that's in there, once we download that, it's going to pull it over, and we're going to have once we click on it in the Equipment Mobile app, it'll give us this screen that's over here to the right. So it's going to give you your equipment information, your operator's manual, and then it's going to give you some tools down at the bottom. So the tools within the sprayer app is going to be your nozzle selection, your techniques calculator, and direct injection calculator as well. So if you click on your nozzle select, what you're going to do is just kind of add any information in there about the tank mix that you have or the solution you're going to be spraying. And that's going to spit you out over here what nozzles would be relevant for that application. So it's going to tell you these 3 nozzles the 3 nozzles you've got up here, then you're going to be able to filter those by the colors up at the top or the droplet size. So once you get on your droplet size, it's going to narrow it down even further. On top of all that, it's going to give you your speed ranges, your effectiveness of the nozzle, and just make it really easy to select what you need for that product application. It's the same information, and we should have an Apply Plus app. It's the same calculator. It's got a few new features on it as far as the way you select and sort everything instead of just being like a screenshot. This is what's previously in Apply Plus. Also got a tank mix calculator. Click on tank mix calculator, you're going to tell how much you've got to spray. You're going to tell what the tank volume is and what your solution rate is. Once you click product needed for tank mix, it's going to let you know what you need to spray that total amount of acreage. So here it's 545 acres. It's going to tell you how many tanks you need. I think it was 17 loads. It's going to be 16 full loads and 1 partial load. And then it's going to break down how you need to load those tanks. So obviously the first 16 would be that mix. And then that last partial tank, or that last partial load, is identified over here. Look at 17. It's 11.66 acres. And then it's going to tell you your product rate and carrier as far as what you need on that as well. So again, really easy way to break down and tell you exactly what you need in those tanks. The first 16 are going to be pretty quick and easy. That last one, you would need on that that piece of acre, you'd have to monitor a little closer to know what you're feeling and whatnot. And then lastly, the direct injection calculator. You can see here kind of the same thing. You put in your boom width, your vehicle speed, your solution rate, and then it's going to spit out that information as far as the chemical goes in the direct injection. I'm going to skip this one because it don't look like there's audio on here. Anytime, any of this stuff, who uses YouTube much? John Deere has a pretty fair presence on YouTube with a lot of this stuff we talk about and train about. There's several really good quick videos, probably 2 or 3 minutes or less, in regards to equipment mobile. Talks a little bit about downloading it, talks about some of the functionality, the features inside of it, and that's actually what we're doing. What we're going to do here is just watch a 3-minute video on what's got to be done. But some of these slides are going to cover pretty well what's in that video. All right, so software updates. It's always a tough spot. Somebody mentioned earlier, like with display software, they do display software at least 3 times a year. So we'll do 24-1, 24-2, 24-3. Think about all those controllers on that tractor that we might have software updates throughout the year as well. And just because we do a software update, don't always mean we've got to go do that right then. But what we've been able here is a way for you as a customer to manage those software updates via the Equipment Mobile app. So I think somebody who uses Equipment Mobile pretty regularly, you have like a tractor or a combine or a sprayer that has a 4G MTG on it. Can you pull it up with your Equipment Mobile app? We're going to put it up on the screen or anything.
Okay.
And when you go down to you just hit that piece of equipment, whatever it is, like.
Hit view software updates.
Yep.
All right, this update is no available software updates.
So how long did that take? Have you ever done that before?
Not much, but yeah.
So it took about 15 seconds to go in there and check the software on a piece of equipment. And that's what we're after now. We want to be able to give you the access to see what needs updated, how to update it, and it makes it pretty quick and easy to do it. So starting in about December of 23, we released this feature through Equipment Mobile. And it does exactly what we just talked about. It allows you to go in and view updates available for the tractor or the piece of equipment, as well as install those updates. So using the Equipment Mobile app, you log in through Operations Center, and it enables to remotely download secure software updates on compatible 4G equipment. So that's one of the keys there is compatible 4G equipment. We'll get into the equipment that's compatible in a minute, but the most important piece is that it has to have 4G and MTG on it. This is all geared again, getting as much as possible at your fingertips to be able to maintain, run that equipment with the latest updates, and prevent ever having to wait for somebody to come out in regards to a software update. It's just to make it quicker, easier, more convenient for you. So again, you got to have an officer account. User needs to be authorized. We'll talk about authorizations on the next slide here. And then you got to be logged into Equipment Mobile. This is what I was talking about, the authorizations you have to access or give through Operations Center. So you got there's 2 different users up here on the top and the bottom. User 1, or the top one, would be able to access software downloads. And there are 3. Their user access is 3. The one at the bottom, you're not going to be able to view nor install software updates. So if you have somebody as a 1, and we'll just say it was operator, or relatively new operator, and you didn't have that, would not be able to do that. If it's experienced operator that uses this piece of equipment regularly, and you want them to be able to maintain it like that, you can put them into some 3, and they would be able to view and install the downloads or the software updates on there. So this is going to play a quick little video over here on the right. There's no sound to it, but it's just going to show walking through exactly what he just did on his phone to go in and check those updates. So in a matter of, again, 20 seconds, what they did right there was they went in, they looked at the updates available, they clicked update all, they backed out, they went back in, and then it went in and it actually showed that that download was in process. So that's what the screen we're looking at here is saying engine is in process, or in progress. So what happens when we go in there and we actually access equipment mobile, we decide to do a software update. So we go in, we go to equipment mobile, we find that piece of equipment, and we make a decision whether we want to update all the controllers or a single controller. Once you check that box, you go to that next page, or you click next, and that's going to send basically a signal from your computer or a message from your computer to the cloud saying that we've got a software update that needs to go to this tractor, this piece of equipment. As soon as that MTG for that piece of equipment calls in, it's going to start pulling down that software. So when you get in there the next time you turn the key on, there's going to be a message, and it's going to say there's a software available to download. You click yes, and it's going to go ahead and install that software onto that tractor, that piece of equipment. And then it's going to tell you to key off. Once you key off, key back on, that's going to be your software update. Once you get all that done, once the software is successfully installed, Deere actually looks for a return message from that software. And that's part of rekeying that tractor. It tells you turn it off, wait 90 seconds, then turn it back on. That's part of that piece of the equation, is we need a return file from that tractor to show that it's been successfully installed. If we don't get that back, what's going to happen the next time you go into that equipment mobile app?
It's going to show that the update's still pending or it's still available.
It's going to show that the current software is blah, 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 and then you still got new software available. So you might sit there and try to do that same software again, and it might already be on that piece of equipment at that point. It's not very often that it happens, but we have seen it happen where, for whatever the reason, the return file don't come back to Deere and get loaded. So when that happens, what we end up having to do is go in and check the controller, make sure that software updated, and then we can go in and manually just put in there that the software is on there. Again, I've only seen it, I've been in the field for 8 years now, and I've only seen it once. But it can happen. So if you know that software went, and you know it's on there, if you get in touch with somebody, we can get that straightened out.
I had a situation last fall where we got a push to the automatic push to update the display. Evidently there was a lot of controllers that were out of date or something, and it basically is a 8R280, and it bricked the tractor. I mean, it did a complete lockout. You couldn't even, nothing would come on. Turn the key on, nothing would happen. And now I'm a little leery. I've got an update that's been, showing on our 408 sprayer. I'm afraid to touch the dang thing because, it's like, it's kind of, I'm used to, like on my phone or computer, whatever, when I get an update, I update because there's security and all this other stuff. But now I'm a little gun shy when I see that update available, and to hit that, is that thing gonna sit there and lock my machine up when I need it?
So my guess is that push come from the dealer, they probably push the software
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
So, because typically speaking, and again, speaking with generalities at this point, like, whenever Deere pushes software, it's software for one thing. It's one factory pushing one controller update for a specific reason. When there's a bundle like that, typically speaking, that's gonna end up coming from the dealership at that point, is they're just trying to get your controllers updated.
Right.
So we do see occasionally that it takes, if you've got multiple controllers that need to be updated, if you push all of them and they're not done in a order, occasionally it will cause one to break because you got this controller looking for this reading at this point, and it's not seeing it, so it won't take it, and then it just shuts down the world at that point. That is something that, again, we do see. That don't matter if it's pushing remotely or if it's pushing from a cord connected to it. That's an exposure at that point that we know is there. One of the things we're doing right now, and the goal is to have by the end of the year is what we call bundling. And any time that happens, when I say that happens, you've got multiple controllers to do. The bundle is going to have 3 different controller payloads, and that way we can control. This one's going to go first, this one's going to go second, this one's going to go third, yeah. So yeah, that is something that we're working through now. And it does not happen very often, but when it does, it's exactly like you just turn the key on and it's like boom, yeah. So again, that bundling piece of it is being handled, worked on now. And we see less of it today as we get better and better controllers. We see less of it today than we did. And we see more completed payloads than we previously did. But yeah, we're still not 100% clean.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
What about your implement software, up to the climate? Is that gonna be available for the farmer?
If it's got ATG on it, you can still do it, yes, sir. But again, it's got to have a 4G ATG. Eventually, it's going to be everything that's got a 4G ATG. And I'll show the list here at the end as we get it. But we've had to start just from the programming piece, so we've had to start smaller, and then we're going to continue to grow. But again, eventually, it's going to be everything as long as it's got a 4G. So these are just a few of the different screenshots. Again, it's very similar to what you've seen in the little video that they had on the side there. But this is somebody that's gone in at 9750, and they've gone in, they've programmed the top controller, that middle controller's in progress, then the other 2 are still pending. So again, we'll just do one at a time at this point. So we'll go in, we've got the one controller that's done, it's moved on to the second one, it's still got 2 more in the queue to be downloaded. Here on the second screenshot shows that second one failed. So that's how you're gonna know if something didn't take at that point. That way you can back out of it, you can try to push that software back to it again. Once it gets completed, you'll see that your no more software updates. And then if you back out and go back into that piece of equipment, it's gonna show you that piece of equipment's up to date at that point. From the user experience piece of it, of the person in the cab, this is what they're gonna see. So when you went in there, you turn the key on just like you would today if somebody pushed a remote payload. You'd get in the cab, you turn the key on. As soon as that MTG realizes it's got to update, it's going to give you that information. And then you're going to click accept, and then it'll pull that update down onto the controller. Again, it's not just automatic. It does have to have that second piece of somebody telling it to do it. So today, as of right now, these are the pieces of equipment that has the capability to do the remote software on it. from your phone. So it's going to cover your tractors, combines, cotton harvesters. Again, you'll see the planters aren't up here right now, but we're going to continue to migrate everything into here, and everything's going to be available to be able to pull from your phone with the 4G MTG. We just wanted to put a couple of things up here as far as why can't I see software updates? If you get in there to go look for them, what could go wrong or what could be going wrong at that point? So what if the customer can't see the updates? You got inactive 4G MTG. If your MTG is not active, it's not going to show you an update. The majority of all 4G MTG should be active, especially if you bought that piece from Quality Equipment, because it's not had to be migrated. If you bought a piece from somewhere else and you've not had a conversation with Quality at this point, they might not have turned that MTG back on. But if once that tractor migrates out of another dealer's area, it's very likely that they'd cut that MTG off and it not be come back on until you had that conversation. The 4G MTG machine is not yet compatible. So back to your planner question, if I pulled up my 1795 planner right now to look, I know I've got a 4G MTG on it. So maybe we just haven't pulled that equipment into that yet. 3G MTG subscription, again, it's got to be 4G. We don't have to worry about the country or region. And then we did talk just a minute about the equipment proficiency, and you got to be set to a level 3. If a known controller software payload is not visible, it might not actually have any new software, or new features have not been released. So if you've got the latest software version, or if there's just not any new software updates, you won't see anything to do with that controller in the few software updates. Get in here real quick. So Quality Equipment was good enough to let me actually come in and pair with some of their equipment for this meeting and stuff. I'm just going to go in here to this 6145. And you see, as soon as you go into that piece of equipment, that bottom button there is going to be where I do my software updates. So I go in there and click on my View Software Updates. And it'll show you currently there's 14 updates available. We actually sent some of these the other day. It looks like nobody's turned the tractor on or accepted it yet. But you can go through, you can turn off every one of those updates. And just leave, there's just one controller that maybe somebody's told you we need to update that software because there was a bug fix in there, whatever it might be. You can go to that one controller, highlight it, click update, and it'll just send that one update. Maybe you're in the field, you don't have time to deal with all of it. You just want to get that one and keep going again. Again, you can just select that one controller and keep update it, keep moving. Quicker than trying to do all of it. If you go into it, I think there was one that all the software was updated. Now we've still got 2 updates available. I thought there was one piece of equipment that didn't have any software. So all of them have software updates available. But if you were to click in there, it would just tell you no updates available. It wouldn't list your controllers. It wouldn't tell you nothing other than there's no updates available. As we talked a little bit too while ago, I mentioned that software versions. So you'll see when we ask for that return file, you'll see the installed software shows it's AXE 1001088, but you'll see that available is what's different. That's what I was saying, we need that return file to let it know that it actually hit that piece of equipment. That way we're not trying to get new software to it again. That's all that return file is for. Also, if you call a dealer and maybe ask them like, I'm having trouble with X, they might ask you what that software version on that controller is to see if you need to update it for that. Any questions about software updates? Anybody think they'll use that software update? Anybody think they probably will vote? Yes, sir.
I do have one question. So let's say that this was July of 2023. When we saw that alert and it said we needed software, we were not keeping display software. So that got kind of confusing. Like you would be in the tractor and you would acknowledge that you needed software. You don't really know what it was or where it came from. And then later on, you need a display. But when you're saying that we don't take the step to push the one for the display, we won't have it.
Well, you're not gonna update, are you talking about, yes. So, are you talking about like the Gen 4 on your tractor?
Yeah, or newer gens.
Okay, yep. Yeah, if you don't, you've got to do that unless it gets pushed.
But we don't need a thumb drive anymore. We don't.
Yes, you would still need, if you're updating the operating system in that tractor, yes, you would still need a thumb drive.
It's not gonna do that.
No, sir. That's such a big package, we can't send that over the air.
Okay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Because see, some of the ones you had there, it said display, so it kind of makes you.
So there's
doing something to the process.
There's two pieces of that. And even on the older tractors, you go in there and it can tell you to update it. It's not actually updating the whole system. So yeah, you would still want to do your thumb drive if you needed to update that. Yep.
I wasn't sure if this was taking place in there.
Not yet. It's just because that, and I mean, when you're doing that on a thumb drive, it's half-hour job. It's just the amount of data that's being transferred and sent, and then trying to preserve the data that's in there for you already, right? Because if we just send you some blank payloads, it's going to get rid of all the work you've done. So that's why it becomes such a bulky.
So you're still going to need, like, for update receivers and all that, you need to look at.
Not receivers now. Not receivers. So just for basically operating system on that tractor, the 24-1 software.
The rate controllers and all that.
Correct. Good question. Anything else? All right. I'm gonna switch back to my phone just because clicking slides gets boring after a while. So one of the other things, and again, we talked about tools just really quick just a minute ago and equipment information. But one of the neat things in equipment mobile is the ability to help you set up equipment or get it ready for harvesting, spraying, whatever it might be. So who knows how to set up a combine? Who can walk through a combine and just put every setting on that thing first time around and have it right? Imagine a lot of you in here probably can, right? Who's got a guy that works on their farm that maybe you don't know? Like, you need to tell them step by step, or you need to give them a list. But this is going to be that list for them. So if you get the combine ready, you go into equipment information, you go to crop settings. We'll just do corn, dry corn, harvester settings outside. And it'll walk them through step by step of everything they need to do outside of that combine. Everywhere they need to change something or check something. Once you get to the end of the outside settings, and it's gonna move to the front end equipment settings. And it's gonna take them step by step through those front end equipment settings. Once you get done with that, then they climb up in the tractor, or the combine, and then you go set that display up as well. You go through and get all your starting settings for that display. So, in hopes of this making it easier on the operator to be able to just intuitively go to that machine and be able to make those settings so you know you're ready to go in the corn. Now, is this going to be an optimized setting? So is this thing, are you going to be able to say, all right, let's go, we don't need to do nothing else with this combine? No. And to be honest, as you as an owner or anybody that's been in one long enough, you probably know, well, I don't want my fan speed there, I don't want my fan speed there, I don't want my traffic clearance here, I don't want my traffic clearance there. I want to do this with my rotor speed. You probably know that better, and you can go in at that point and make those fine tunes. But the good thing is the majority of it's done at that point. All the walking around and moving levers, switching chains, all that's going to be done. It's going to be that fine tuning piece that's left from there. Again, there's the cotton, we showed you the sprayer, this combine, anything like that, you're going to be able to leverage those tools to be able to do that. One last thing here I'm going to talk about today is going to be RDA, RDC. So I already mentioned what RDA was. Everybody know what RDA is? What was it? Remote display access. And what can we do through remote display access? What kind of tool is that? You call somebody, they're sitting on the phone and they're telling you, well, push here, let's look at that. Push there, let's look at that, right? So it's somebody's telling you where to push that screen so they can see it while you're doing it. So remote display access is a great tool used for the call center, right? You call into the call center, say, I've got this going on. Well, let's go in and check this, and this. And they're able to see exactly what's going on at that point. RDC is going to be the next evolution of RDA. So RDC is remote display control. So you start off with the RDA session. So you start off, and we'll say Stephen called in to your tractor or sent a remote display request to your tractor. You would still accept it just like you always have. The big difference would be that yellow button up at the top. You would hit that yellow button, and that's going to give him control at that point. Typically, your outline on your display will be blue. It's going to turn that to yellow, and that's going to show you that you're in remote display control at that point. The great thing about remote display control is they're not going to be telling you push here, no, push here, push there. They're going to be doing it from the screen or from their screen for you. Make it a little bit easier, a little bit less following direction at that point, I guess is what you would say. Currently speaking, this is only on autonomous tractors. So for today's world, that would be autonomous tillage. By the end of the year, we're going to start moving that over to 5G displays. So if you've got a 5G display, obviously with a 4G MTG on it, you will be able to access the remote display control. So you'd be able to start those sessions, Stephen would be able to start those sessions, the contact center would be able to start those sessions, be able to move around in there. One of the differences between autonomous and non-autonomous, when Stephen or anybody else wants to start a remote display access session with you, What do you have to do in the cab? You have to accept it. If you're in autonomous mode, can you accept it? No. So this is a way for, if you were to be running an autonomous piece of equipment, this is a way for you to leverage, be able to see and make changes on that screen without somebody sitting in that tractor. So you might not have to drive to it at that point. The one thing that we do differently between the autonomous and non-autonomous is there's not going to be anybody push the button until you get, if it's an autonomous mode, you get to go directly in that screen. You don't have to wait for somebody to respond to that. Now, if you take that piece of equipment out of autonomous, so the tractor, whether that autonomous button is pushed or not, depends on whether you get that pop-up or not. So that's going to be a big difference in RDA and RDC. And then just one more thing.